They came on a Tuesday. The skies over every major city on Earth darkened as massive ships moved into position. Each vessel stretched nearly 3 miles long, their hulls a deep purple-black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. People stood frozen in streets, on rooftops, in fields, all staring upward as the ordinary blue of Earth's sky disappeared behind the largest fleet humans had ever seen. In orbit, the International Space Station looked like a child's toy next to the lid ship. The astronauts aboard sent frantic messages to ground control, reporting that the alien vessels had positioned themselves in perfect geometric formation around the planet. All television, radio, and internet signals worldwide cut out simultaneously. When they returned 30 seconds later, every screen showed the same image: a tall, slender figure with gray-blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes, 3 of them, blinked in sequence as it began to speak. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Krasful of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world now falls under our protection and authority. You will receive formal terms within 6 hours. Prepare your leaders to accept our generous offer." The transmission ended. Panic erupted globally. In Washington, D.C., President Allison Wright sat in the Emergency Operations Center beneath the White House, surrounded by her security team and top advisors. Her face remained calm, though her knuckles had turned white from gripping the edge of the table. "What do we know about their weapons capabilities?" she asked. General Frank Miller, her chief military advisor, shook his head. "Nothing concrete, Madam President, but the energy readings from those ships are off the charts. One of them could probably wipe out the entire East Coast without breaking a sweat." "So we can't fight," Secretary of Defense Paul Ryan stated flatly. "I didn't say that," Miller replied. "I said we don't know what we're up against." 6 hours later, as promised, Admiral Krasful appeared in the center of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, not in person, but as a perfect hologram that required no projector. World leaders who had managed to reach the emergency session flinched as the alien spoke. "The terms are simple. Earth will provide annual tribute of raw materials. The list is being transmitted to your computers now. You will also provide 200,000 of your people each year for labor in our outer systems. In exchange, your world continues to exist." The room erupted in shouts and protests. The Admiral's third eye blinked slowly, and the room fell silent. "This is not a negotiation. You have 48 hours to accept. After that, we will select one of your smaller countries for demonstration purposes." The hologram flickered and vanished. At the back of the room, Dr. Alan Prescott, head of the newly formed Xenotech Division, stared at his tablet. While everyone else had watched the Admiral, he had scanned the hologram technology with specialized equipment. Something about the readings didn't make sense. He approached President Wright as she huddled with other world leaders. "Madam President, I need to speak with you privately." 10 minutes later, in a secure room, Prescott showed her his findings. "Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's different, not just better. The fundamental approach is alien in ways that might matter." "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Wright asked. "Ask for more time. Say we need to organize the tribute. I need 72 hours to analyze their capabilities." The president studied his face. "You think you found a weakness. I think I found something interesting. And right now, interesting is all we've got." 3 hours later, President Wright stood alone on the White House lawn as the hologram of Admiral Krasful appeared before her. "We require more time to prepare," she said firmly. 72 hours to organize the first tribute collection." The alien's mouthparts twitched in what might have been amusement. "Your species thinks it can delay the inevitable. Very well. 3 of your days. It makes no difference to the hegemony." As the hologram disappeared, Wright took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "It might make all the difference to us." Dr. Prescott didn't waste a minute of their 72-hour window. Within 2 hours of the president's meeting with Admiral Krasful, he had assembled a team in an underground facility in Nevada originally built for nuclear testing. We have less than 3 days to find something, anything, that might give us leverage, he told the bleary-eyed scientists and engineers who had been rushed in from across the country. I've divided the data into 4 categories. We need to understand their tech, and fast. Dr. Susan Harper, a quantum physicist with wild curly hair and perpetually smudged glasses, raised her hand. What exactly are we looking for? Anything unusual. Anything that doesn't match our understanding of physics, or better yet, anything that does. The team set to work. In one corner, Peter Calloway, a materials specialist who had helped develop the latest generation of American body armor, analyzed the few images they had of the hegemony ships. Their hull material absorbs radar, light, even some radiation, he muttered to himself. But why is it purple? In another section, Kate Simmons, an AI architect who had left a high-paying job in Silicon Valley to work for the government, was running simulations on how the aliens might have programmed their systems. By the 48-hour mark, the team was running on coffee and fear. Sleep came in short naps on cots set up between workstations. The president called every 6 hours for updates, but Prescott had nothing concrete to report. Then, just after midnight on the 3rd day, Dr. Harper burst into the break room where Prescott was forcing down a sandwich. I think I found something, she said, her eyes wide. The energy signatures from their ships. They don't make sense. What do you mean? They're incredibly efficient, yes, but there's something missing. She spread out pages of calculations on the table. Look at these readings. They're using some kind of biological mechanical hybrid system. It's elegant, but it's following a completely different technological path than ours. Prescott stared at the numbers. Different how? It's like comparing a sailboat to a motorboat. Both work, but on totally different principles. They've developed along lines that prioritize integrating with biological systems and energy conservation. But there are huge gaps in areas we've mastered. Within an hour, the entire team had gathered around Harper's findings. Peter Calloway added his observations about their materials science. Kate Simmons contributed insights on their information systems. I don't think they use AI the way we do, Simmons said. Their computing seems to be more distributed, organic, powerful in some ways, but not adaptable like our systems. As the final hours ticked away, a pattern emerged. The hegemony had technology centuries beyond Earth's in many areas. But they had gaps, blind spots in their knowledge where humanity had focused its efforts. They don't use nuclear energy, Harper said suddenly, looking up from a spectrum analysis. Not fission, not fusion, nothing. I don't think they ever went down that path. And they don't seem to understand certain particle physics applications, Calloway added. Applications we use in our most advanced weapon systems. Prescott felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Harper nodded slowly. They could destroy us easily with what they have, but they might not have any defense against what we could throw at them. Because they evolved past the need for such weapons, Simmons whispered. Or because they took a different evolutionary path entirely, Prescott said. He checked his watch. We have 8 hours left. I need everything you found compiled into one presentation. Something clear enough that the president can understand in 5 minutes. As the team scrambled to put together their findings, Prescott stepped outside the facility to call the White House. For the first time in 3 days, he looked up at the stars, now hidden behind the massive shapes of alien ships. We're not dead yet, he murmured to the night sky. In fact, we might just have a chance. The White House Situation Room was packed with people but completely silent. President Wright stood at the head of the table, reviewing the presentation Prescott's team had prepared. On the screens around them, images of the hegemony ships loomed large. Let me make sure I understand, the president said finally. They could destroy our cities with ease, but we might have weapons they're not prepared to defend against. Yes, Madam President. Prescott nodded. Their technology took a different evolutionary path. They focused on biological integration and energy efficiency. We focused on raw power and computational adaptability. General Miller leaned forward. So our nuclear weapons might work against them. Not just nuclear, Dr. Harper added. Certain particle beam technologies, electromagnetic pulse weapons, even our more advanced conventional explosives, they seem to have no equivalent. Because they never needed them, Prescott explained. Their civilization appears to have developed cooperation earlier than ours. They didn't spend centuries trying to kill each other more efficiently. President Wright's face remained serious. And you're suggesting we what? Threaten them with these weapons? No, Prescott shook his head. I'm suggesting we offer them something they don't have. A trade. An alliance, not a submission. The president checked her watch. Their deadline expires in 40 minutes. Let's go give them our answer. The holographic projection of Admiral Krasthval appeared in the White House Rose Garden exactly on time. This time, he was accompanied by 2 other aliens with different markings, members of the Hegemony Council. Your time is up, the Admiral stated. Are you prepared to accept our terms? President Wright stepped forward, flanked by her advisors and the scientific team. Her voice was steady. Admiral, we have a counter-proposal. Earth wishes to join the Galactic Hegemony not as a tribute world, but as an equal partner with mutually beneficial technology exchange. The Admiral's 3 eyes blinked in their strange sequence. Then, a sound emerged that the translator devices struggled to interpret. Laughter. You misunderstand your position. Thousands of worlds pay tribute to the hegemony. None are offered alliance status. You have nothing unique to offer. I believe we do, President Wright replied calmly. She nodded to Prescott. Prescott activated the small device in his hand. A hologram appeared between the humans and aliens, crude compared to the hegemony's technology, but clear enough. It showed detailed schematics of Earth weapons systems, focused particularly on their nuclear arsenal and experimental particle physics applications. These are some of our defensive capabilities, Prescott explained. We've run simulations on how they would interact with your ship designs. He pressed another button. The hologram changed to show a simulation of a hegemony ship being struck by a nuclear missile. The ship's hull, supposedly impervious, cracked open like an egg. The simulation showed several more examples, each demonstrating weaknesses in alien technology against human weapons. The Admiral's translator device went silent. The 3 aliens stared at the hologram, their body language shifting in ways the humans couldn't interpret. But tension was universal. When the Admiral spoke again, his voice had lost its condescending tone. These are theoretical models only. You cannot have such weapons. Dr. Harper stepped forward. We've had nuclear weapons for over 80 years, Admiral. Currently, Earth possesses approximately 12,000 nuclear warheads. And those are just our older technologies. The Hegemony Council members turned to each other, communicating in rapid clicks and whistles their translators didn't convert. Admiral Krasthval finally turned back to the humans. We will require verification of these claims. Of course, President Wright nodded. And we will require serious discussion about the terms of our alliance. Alliance. The Admiral's third eye narrowed. Yes, Wright said firmly. Perhaps, Admiral, we should discuss terms as equals. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. In that minute, the relationship between humanity and the galactic hegemony fundamentally changed. The Council will consider your proposal, the Admiral finally said. The holograms flickered and disappeared. General Miller let out a long breath. Did we just bluff our way out of alien subjugation? It wasn't a bluff, Prescott replied. And they know it. President Wright looked up at the alien ships still visible in the evening sky. Now comes the hard part. We need to be ready to back up our claims. They don't believe us, President Wright told the emergency meeting of world leaders the next morning. The Hegemony Council wants proof. They want a demonstration. That's good, right? Asked the British Prime Minister. It means they're taking us seriously. General Miller shook his head. It means they're calling our bluff. We showed them simulations. Now they want to see if we can actually do it. Can we? Asked the President of India. All eyes turned to Dr. Prescott. Yes, he said. But we need to be careful. We need to show enough to convince them, but not everything we can do. 3 days later, a small team prepared to depart Earth. Commander John Garcia, a veteran of 5 space missions, would lead the demonstration aboard the UNS Defiance, a prototype vessel that had been under development in secret for the past decade. Remember, President Wright told Commander Garcia during the final briefing, "This isn't about starting a war. It's about preventing one. Show them just enough of our capabilities to make them respect us." Garcia nodded. 10% power on all systems. No more. The UNS Defiance wasn't large, only about twice the size of the old space shuttle, but it contained humanity's most advanced technologies. Its engines used a new form of nuclear propulsion. Its weapon systems were experimental, and its onboard AI, though limited by human safety protocols, was more sophisticated than anything publicly known. The ship lifted off from a base in the Australian outback, accelerating rapidly through the atmosphere. As it broke orbit, 3 hegemony vessels moved to escort it toward the agreed-upon demonstration area in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The journey took only hours, thanks to the Defiance's advanced engines. Even operating at reduced power, the human ship kept pace with the alien vessels, something the hegemony observers noted with concern. At the demonstration site, a collection of medium-sized asteroids floated in the emptiness of space. Garcia looked at his small crew: Navigation Officer Lucia Reyes, Weapons Specialist Ben Cole, and Dr. Harper, brought along to analyze the hegemony's reactions. "Let's start with something simple," Garcia said. "Mr. Cole, target the smallest asteroid with kinetic projectiles." Cole's fingers danced over the control panel. Outside, small ports opened in the Defiance's hull. Tiny projectiles, smaller than bullets, shot out at incredible speeds. The asteroid, roughly the size of a city block, shattered into thousands of pieces. "Basic kinetic weapons," Garcia explained over the communication channel to the watching hegemony ships. "Minimal AI guidance systems." Next came a demonstration of the Defiance's defensive capabilities. One of the hegemony escorts fired a low-power energy beam at the human ship with permission. The Defiance's shields, technology the aliens had believed impossible for humans to possess, flickered into visibility, absorbing the attack completely. "Adaptive shielding," Garcia explained. "It learns from each attack." The hegemony observers remained silent, but their ships moved slightly farther away from the Defiance. For the final demonstration, Garcia had his crew target the largest asteroid in the field, a rock nearly half a mile across. "We will now demonstrate a controlled nuclear detonation," he announced to the hegemony observers. "Please maintain your current distance." A single missile launched from the Defiance. Cole had programmed it to use less than 10% of its potential yield, still enough to split the asteroid in half. But something unexpected happened. As the missile struck, the asteroid didn't just split, it vaporized almost completely, leaving only dust and tiny fragments. "What happened?" Garcia demanded. "I said 10% power." "It was 10%, Cole insisted, checking his readings. But something about the asteroid's composition caused a chain reaction. The yield was amplified. Over the communication channel, silence from the hegemony ships continued for a full minute. Then, a voice, not Admiral Krasthul, but one of the council members, spoke. "We have seen enough. Return to your planet. The council will reconsider its position." As the Defiance began its journey back to Earth, Dr. Harper studied the readings from the hegemony ships. Their energy signatures changed during the nuclear demonstration. She told Garcia, "I think we scared them." "Good," Garcia replied, looking out at the stars. "Fear isn't the foundation for friendship, but respect. That's a start." Geneva, Switzerland became the center of the most important diplomatic event in human history. The Palais des Nations, home of the old United Nations office, now hosted representatives from Earth and the galactic hegemony. The Grand Assembly Hall had been modified to accommodate the aliens' different physical needs. The temperature was raised by 10 degrees, and the lighting dimmed to a level that humans found barely adequate, but the hegemony representatives preferred. Elizabeth Rice, Earth's chief negotiator, had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had brokered peace deals between warring nations and negotiated complex trade agreements. Nothing had prepared her for sitting across from beings from another world. The demonstration was impressive, said the lead hegemony negotiator, a being named Vexilor, whose skin was a lighter blue than Admiral Krasfal's. But it does not change the fundamental reality. The hegemony controls thousands of worlds. Your one planet, while unusually advanced in certain limited areas, cannot stand against our combined might. Reyes smiled pleasantly. We're not looking to stand against you. We're looking to stand with you, as equals. Vexilor's upper limbs made a dismissive gesture. There are no equals to the hegemony. Perhaps it's time for that to change, Reyes replied. She slid a data tablet across the table. These are our terms. Recognition as a sovereign system exempt from tribute. Defined territorial rights for human expansion. And mutual defense provisions. The hegemony delegation examined the document. Their translator devices worked silently as they read. This is unprecedented, Vexilor finally said. So is our situation, Rice pointed out. We're the first species you've encountered with technology that developed along such different lines. After hours of back and forth, the formal session ended without agreement. But as the main delegations filed out, Vexilor approached Rice privately, along with Dr. Prescott, who had been observing. There is another concern, the alien said quietly. One my delegation cannot state publicly. Your artificial intelligence technology. What about it? Prescott asked. It poses an existential threat to our entire system of governance. Vexilor looked around nervously. The hegemony maintains control through technological superiority. Subject worlds are prevented from developing certain technologies, your AI capabilities. If they spread. Now Reyes understood. You're afraid our AI technology could help other worlds break free. They would not use it wisely as you have, Vexilor insisted. Your restraint in developing AI with strict safety protocols is unusual. Others would not be so careful. The negotiations stalled for 3 days after this conversation. Behind closed doors, Earth's leaders debated their options. They're afraid of our AI, President Wright told her advisory council. That's our leverage point. But they're right to be concerned, Kate Simmons argued. Uncontrolled AI development is dangerous. We've been careful. Other worlds might not be. Lieutenant Maria Winters, a military AI specialist who had been quiet until now, raised her hand. What if we showed them a third option? Not AI as a tool to be controlled, and not AI as a potential rebellion risk, but AI as a partner. The next day, Winters and Dr. Prescott requested a private demonstration for the hegemony delegates. In a secure room, they showed something the aliens had never seen before, a human-AI interface system where the human and artificial intelligence worked cooperatively. This is Lieutenant Winters and KMI. Prescott introduced them. Cognitive Augmented Military Intelligence. They'd been working together for 3 years. Winters wore a slim headset. KMI doesn't control me, and I don't control her. We collaborate. She processes information faster than I can. I provide intuition and judgment she doesn't have. Together, they demonstrated solving complex problems neither could handle alone. The hegemony delegates watched with three-eyed stares that never blinked. You trust this machine? Asked Vexilor. I trust her because I understand her, Winters replied. And because we built our relationship on respect, not control. The concept was completely alien to the hegemony representatives. They had always viewed AI as either a tool to be strictly limited or a threat to be eliminated. The idea of partnership had never occurred to them. Vexlor turned to the other delegates and spoke rapidly in their native language. Something had changed. For the first time, they weren't seeing humans as primitive beings with a few dangerous technologies. They were seeing a species that might actually have something to teach them. "We need to consult with the full council," Vexlor finally said. "This partnership concept, it requires further consideration." 3 weeks into the negotiations, as Earth and the hegemony seemed to be making progress, the emergency alarms sounded throughout the Pallid nations. The hegemony delegation rushed into the main chamber, their normally controlled movements now frantic. "What's happening?" President Wright demanded as she entered the room. Admiral Krasful's 3 eyes blinked rapidly in agitation. "You have done this. Your deception will not be tolerated." On the large screens around the chamber, images appeared from across hegemony space. On planet after planet, subject species were rising up against their hegemony overseers. Massive protests filled alien streets. In some places, hegemony buildings burned. "What is this?" Elizabeth Rice asked, genuinely confused. "These are rebellion coordinates Alpha 9, Sector 12, Vexlor explained, his voice tight with anger. "And here, Gamma 6, Sector 3, 5 tributary worlds in simultaneous uprising." "You think we caused this?" Wright asked. "The timing is obvious," Krasful snarled. "First contact with Earth, then suddenly rebellions across hegemony space. You have been sending messages to our subject worlds." On the screens, the images continued. One showed a crowd of alien protesters holding crude signs. The humans gasped when they saw what was written on them, in multiple languages, but clear enough. "Earth is free, so can we." "We had nothing to do with this," Wright insisted. "We've been fully engaged in negotiations here." "Then explain how these beings know about Earth," Krasful demanded. "How they know about your defiance. These are worlds thousands of light years apart." Dr. Prescott stepped forward, studying the images. "Your communications network," he said quietly. "The one you used to control your empire. It wasn't as secure as you thought." Vexlor's anger seemed to fade, replaced by worry. "Impossible. Our quantum entanglement system is unbreakable." "But not unlistenable," Prescott suggested. "Your subject worlds have been monitoring your internal communications. They heard about Earth from you, not from us." A tense silence filled the room as this possibility sank in. The rebellion wasn't Earth's doing. It was an unintended consequence of the hegemony's own fear and fascination with humanity. "The negotiations are suspended," Admiral Krasful announced. "Our fleet must respond to these disturbances." As the hegemony delegation prepared to leave, urgent messages continued to arrive. More worlds were joining the uprisings. After the aliens departed, Earth's leaders gathered for an emergency session of their own. "What do we do now?" asked the German Chancellor. "If they crush these rebellions, they'll blame us and possibly return with their full military might. And if they fail to crush the rebellions," the president of Brazil countered, "these other worlds might become our allies." President Wright looked around the table. "We need to decide where we stand. Do we disavow any connection to these rebellions and try to salvage our deal with the hegemony? Or do we support worlds seeking the same freedom we demanded?" The debate continued for hours. Military advisors warned about the risks of challenging the Galactic Empire. Humanitarian voices argued for supporting oppressed peoples, regardless of species. Finally, General Miller spoke up. "Madam President, there's something else to consider. If these other worlds succeed in breaking free, they'll remember who helped them and who didn't." Dr. Harper nodded, "And many of them have technologies and resources that complement our own. An alliance of free worlds would be stronger than any deal we could make with the hegemony." President Wright stood up, her decision made. "Call for a vote in the United Nations. I believe the choice is clear." 2 days later, in a historic session, The UN voted overwhelmingly to offer technological and military support to any world seeking independence from the hegemony. Earth would stand not just for its own freedom, but for the freedom of all sentient beings. As the votes were tallied and the decision announced, Dr. Prescott turned to President Wright. "They came demanding tribute," he said quietly. "Instead, they may have triggered the end of their empire." "Freedom," Wright replied, "is not a human concept. It's a universal desire. We just reminded the galaxy of that." 6 months after Earth's decision to support the rebellions, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Commander John Garcia, now Admiral Garcia, stood on the bridge of the UNS Alliance, a new vessel 3 times the size of the Defiance. Through the view screen, he watched as ships from a dozen different species moved in perfect formation alongside his own. Each represented a world that had broken free from hegemony control. "Status report on the Proxima system," Garcia asked. "Their defense grid is online," Lieutenant Rice answered. "The last hegemony forces withdrew 2 days ago." Garcia nodded with satisfaction. "That's the 15th system to join the Accord this month." The Sovereign Systems Accord had started as a desperate alliance between Earth and 7 rebellious worlds. Now it included nearly a third of the former hegemony territory, planets whose species had seized the opportunity to claim their independence. Earth ships provided the defensive backbone of the new alliance, while other worlds contributed their own unique technologies and resources. Together, they were stronger than any of them could have been alone. Back on Earth, President Wright stood in the early morning light on a platform at the L5 point between Earth and the Moon. Around her, construction drones swarmed over the massive framework of what would become Harmony Station, the diplomatic hub for the new interstellar community. Dr. Prescott joined her at the railing, looking out at the structure that would soon house representatives from dozens of worlds. "It's happening faster than we expected," he said. "The hegemony is actually implementing reforms." Wright nodded. They had no choice. They lost too many worlds too quickly. After failing to crush the initial rebellions, the hegemony had suffered defeat after defeat. The remaining tributary worlds had started demanding better treatment. A growing faction within the hegemony leadership had begun pushing for fundamental changes, transforming their empire from a tribute-based system to a voluntary federation. "Their ambassador arrives tomorrow," Wright said, "for formal treaty negotiations." "Do you trust them?" Prescott asked. "Not entirely," she admitted, "but we'll verify everything. And we have friends now." On a research station orbiting Venus, Dr. Susan Harper led a team that now included scientists from a dozen different species. They gathered around a holographic projection that showed patterns of neural activity from different alien brains. "It's remarkable," said Zixta, a scientist from a world that had been among the first to join the Accord. "Despite our physical differences, the patterns of consciousness show striking similarities across all our species, and differences that complement each other perfectly," Harper added. "Your species perceives quantum states naturally. Humans intuit patterns in chaos. The Volturians process emotions with mathematical precision. Together," Zixta said, "we understand more than any of us could alone." This discovery, the harmony principle, as it became known, would form the foundation for the next century of galactic cooperation, not just in science, but in art, philosophy, and governance. As the sun set on Washington, D.C., President Wright and Dr. Prescott stood on the White House balcony, looking up at the stars. The bright point of light that was Harmony Station moved slowly across the sky. They came expecting tribute, Wright reflected. Instead, they found partners. And something more. "What's that?" Prescott asked. "Their conscience," she replied. "Something I think they'd forgotten they had." Prescott smiled. "And we found something too." "What's that?" "Our place in the universe," he said. "Not conquerors, not victims, but builders of something better. In the coming years, humanity would face new challenges. The reformed hegemony remained powerful, Unknown threats lurked in unexplored regions of the galaxy, but Earth would not face these challenges alone. When the hegemony ships had first appeared in Earth's skies, humanity had stood on the brink of subjugation. Instead, they had changed the course of galactic history, not through domination, but by reminding a million worlds of the universal desire for freedom, dignity, and cooperation. The stars no longer seemed distant and unreachable. They were beacons, calling humanity to a future brighter than anyone could have imagined, a future they would build together with friends across the galaxy.